Hey guys, it's Dr. Justin Marcagiani. Welcome to the Beyond Wellness Radio podcast. Feel free and head over to justinhealth.com. We have all of our podcast transcriptions there, as well as video series on different health topics ranging from thyroid to hormones, ketogenic diets, and gluten. While you're there, you can also schedule a consult with myself, Dr. J, and or our colleagues and staff to help dive into any pressing health issues you really want to get to the root cause on. Again, if you enjoy the podcast, feel free and share the information with friends or family, and enjoy the show. And we are live. It's Dr. J here in the house with Evan Brand. Today, we're going to be talking about iron levels and how they can negatively impact your health. Of course, we have two sides of the same coin here. We have high iron and low iron. Now, in men, high iron is going to be a bigger issue, right? Men don't menstruate. In women, potentially lower iron is going to be the big issue because women are menstruating every month at cycling age. Menopausal women and up, when their cycles start to cease, then there could be more issues there. But out of the gates in women, iron's going to be an issue if it's too low most of the time, especially if there's hormonal issues. And men, it's going to be the opposite. We're going to kind of dive in and give you guys a crash course on both sides of the fence. Evan, how are we doing today, man?
Doing well. Yeah, let's jump right in. So looking at blood work, if you're looking at a female, you and I test ferritin, which we find conventional medical doctors rarely test ferritin being the iron storage protein. And I did a whole video on YouTube. It was one of my most popular videos ever on low ferritin and hair loss. And we've seen how if your ferritin is, let's say 20, that's far too low. You're going to experience maybe some shortness of breath, major hair loss. When we get the ferritin up to 70, 80, or 90, women feel much better, their hair stops falling out, and they can catch their breath. So do you mind like teasing apart when you're looking at these labs, like a total iron versus a ferritin? If you see a female with low total iron, are you really prioritizing that? Or are you going after the low ferritin? Are you going after both? How do you approach it?
Well, the first thing we look at with iron is we have to see how low it is. Okay. There's like I consider it functionally low levels of iron. And then there can be, more, let's just say more acute levels of iron that are more low, right? So we kind of have the functional imbalances versus the more anemic, the conventional medical doctor would say you're low in iron, right? So we have both kind of sides of the fence, right? We have the functional issues and we have the more pathological issues. So first thing we look at is going to be a CBC, right? On a CBC, we're going to look at red blood cells, hemoglobin, and hematocrit. If we see those start to get low, like especially if red blood cells start going below 4, hemoglobin into the 11s, hematocrit into the low 30s, we have problems. Okay. Danger Will Robinson, the red blood cell size is dropping, which is a hallmark of low iron, right? Because we need iron that attaches to the hemoglobin and that helps us carry oxygen. So we have a hypochromic microcytic anemia, and these are going to be smaller red blood cells, right? Small red blood cells are going to be on the iron side. On the B12 side, it's actually the opposite. They're actually bigger. It's called the megaloblastic anemia. They're actually too big. The red blood cells are opposite. We think of humans, they start off small as babies and we get bigger, right? Red blood cells, they start off bigger and they actually get smaller as they get older. And so B12 is needed to mature red blood cells. And so if we don't have enough B12, you're stuck in this more immature state, which is bigger, and you don't have enough B12, then you can't get smaller. Now with iron, it's actually the opposite. You actually get too small when the iron is too low. And then of course you can't carry oxygen, which is really important because aerobic metabolism, which is how we mostly generate energy, requires oxygen. And so that's like, partly the Krebs cycle and the electron transport chain and all that stuff requires oxygen. So on that front, just kind of out of the gates there, we're looking at iron from that perspective, red blood cell, CBC, hemoglobin. And then we can dive deeper into an actual iron panel. And that's where we're going to look at serum iron. That's going to look at iron in the blood. Then we can look at ferritin. That's going to look at our storage form of iron. So iron serum and ferritin are two different things. So think of you're driving a car, right? You have your check engine, or I should say you have your gas gauge, right? For your fuel, right? Your fuel gauge, that's kind of your ferritin, right? Are you on full? Are you on empty? Your iron serum, that's like the fuel that's in the carburetor, ready to be combusted to generate energy. So think of iron serum, that's what's in the engine, that's what's in the blood right away. Ferritin is going to be what's in the gas tank. And so, of course, if you're seeing iron low on the serum side, you want to look deeper, but it's not the be all or end all. You have to look deeper at what's in the gas tank. That's where that's where ferritin will be more helpful. And other markers like iron saturation can be helpful too, because that tells you how saturated the cells are. And then also things like binding proteins those tend to do the opposite. So those tend to go up when iron goes down. So, because think about it, think of iron binding proteins as like fingers, right? The more, or hands, right? The more hungry you are, the more hands you have reaching out to grab stuff, right? And so your body creates these proteins and will try to reach out and grab all this extra iron. So it creates more binding proteins when iron is lower, because it's trying to get as much of that iron into the cell as possible. Does that make sense out of the gates?
Yeah, it's a great breakdown. The analogy is super helpful because, some of the blood chemistry training that you and I've looked at, some of the doctors, they will talk about the importance of ferritin, but that visualization of the gastric makes a whole lot of sense, because you'll have doctors, if they do recognize the low iron, they'll treat that. But then if you see low ferritin, the woman still doesn't have the results she's looking for in regards to hair loss and catching her breath and all of that. So once you get the ferritin levels up, which typically I go for lactoferrin, what are you doing in terms of trying to get ferritin back up? I know optimizing the gut is some of it. We can talk about that, but what about just straight supplement?
So first thing is, you may see higher levels of iron in women that may have low iron. So you have to look at all the markers, like I mentioned, because if they're inflamed, iron is it's also like a reactive oxygen species, right? Think of it as like, it's kind of flammable, if you will. And so when you're inflamed because of poor food or diet issues or toxicity issues, you may have high levels of iron or ferritin because of inflammation. So if you're really inflamed, I always like to make sure we calm inflammation down a little bit first before we throw iron in there. It's like gasoline in the fire. So you really want to make sure, if iron's really high or looks really high, and then we see some inflammation markers like CRP also high, we're seeing a lot of symptoms, right? Brain fog, joint pain, energy issues. Maybe we wait a little bit before we jump on that iron train right away. Maybe we just do some iron-rich foods, on the animal side, and work on getting the inflammation down. So it depends upon where they're at.
That's smart. Let me comment on that real quick. That's really smart and really wise of you to say, because a lot of people will just go jump on the iron train, right? Those doctor will prescribe them an iron, which is probably a really low quality form, which is going to create constipation and other problems. And if they were already having high iron due to inflammation, due to some sort of toxicity, that makes them worse. I had high iron when I first got exposed to mold. I actually looked back at some of my old levels. My ferritin was high, the iron was high, and then I did some pretty high potency turmeric extract, and I was able to get the iron back down. I'm sure the blood donations may have helped too, but it was interesting to see that on paper, how my exposure to toxicity cranked that up a little bit.
Exactly. And then also there's a marker called ceruloplasmin, which is a marker for copper. So sometimes copper can also affect iron as well. Again, I'm not too worried about copper if you're like paleo and you're eating high quality organic meats and high quality animal products, because you're going to typically see high quality zinc and iron products tend to also have copper in there too. So I don't typically get worried about copper being low unless we're really, eating a lot of plant-based products and we're kind of deficient in some of those minerals. And so if we're eating good quality animal products, probably not that big of a deal. And then also it's good to look at when we're doing iron, if someone's vegan or vegetarian, there's different kinds of iron that we'll use, right? And so in my line, I have a product called Iron Supreme, which is an iron bisglycinate, which is bound to glycine, which is good. It's better than like the conventional medicine, which is ferrous sulfate, which tends to be more constipating, leave the stool a lot blacker and darker. The ferrous bisglycinate tends to be pretty well absorbed. So I like that. It's bound to glycine, which is the same kind of amino acid in collagen or bone broth. So I like that. Also, I would say you can, depending on if they're vegan, vegetarian, we may even want to add in just some grass-fed liver, something like that, that's going to have some other nutrients like B12 and vitamin A in there as well. So it just depends upon how good or bad someone's diet is too, and if they can eat animal products. And
how about lactoferrin? Do you use lactoferrin?
I mean, lactoferrin is like, it's like a protein, right?
Yeah, it's like a milk protein.
It's like a milk protein that I think also increases iron levels. It's kind of like vitamin C in a sense, where it increases that binding and absorption of iron. Is that correct?
Yeah. I've seen like a couple iron lactoferrin combos that we've used. And man, it's like rocket fuel to get women back up really quickly.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I don't typically use lactoferrin in general. I'll do my Iron Supreme, which is a bisglycinate. Mm-hmm. And then I'll also throw in some potential iron glandular if they're not eating enough animal products.
Like a liver.
Throw in some extra, like a liver glandular, mm-hmm. and then maybe a little bit extra vitamin C on top of that. But I see a lot of guys out there. I see people say, "Oh, don't eat vitamin C; it's an increase your iron." No, if you're a guy, eat vitamin C. It's not a problem. It's in every leafy green vegetable, every high quality fruit that's out there. It's too important. With guys, the solution to iron issues is just get blood. get a comprehensive blood test done once or twice a year, maybe give blood once a year or twice a year, depending on how many blood tests you get. Just give blood. That's going to be the solution if you're a guy. Don't avoid nutrient dense foods that have nutrients like vitamin C that would increase your iron. Just give blood and do some testing. Keep it simple.
That's the fun part, is that when you're doing comprehensive panels like we're doing, like I just donated blood got blood work this morning. I gave a lot of tubes. It was probably not as much as a donation. It definitely wasn't a pint, but I mean, to me, that's a good slow drip out of my system if I'm running some blood panels throughout the year. So
bingo. Yeah, I think that's totally fine.
And you get data out of it too.
I think that's fine for sure. So we talked about, how to assess some of these iron patterns, right? We have our general CBC. We have an iron panel that would include iron serum, ferritin, iron saturation, TIBC, UIBC, which are similar binding proteins. You can also look at reticulocytes. Reticulocytes are baby red blood cells. If you're losing blood, you're going to see a lot more baby red blood cells because the babies are being formed to kind of fill in the gap of the older adult cells that we're losing it. If there's an ulcer or some kind of a tummy bleed, irritable bowel disease kind of bleed in the intestines or colon or wherever. So that's helpful to look at. And in general, it's if you're vegan, vegetarian, you have a history of not getting iron in your body, you got to fix that, right? That's a whole different podcast and conversation about animal products. You guys can go back to our channels and search for that. We've had conversations just on those topics. The second issue for women is just got to get rid of the hormonal imbalances that are causing you to bleed too much. So if you're, bleeding more than, 4 or more tampons for two days or more, you're probably just menstruating too much. Classic case of hemorrhagia, if you will. And there's probably a lot of estrogen dominance. There's probably higher estrogen, lower levels of progesterone. Maybe progesterone is falling out soon in the cycle. And some of these things are driving just excess bleeding. And that's possible too. And you got to get to the root cause of why that is. Estrogen dominance, usually some adrenal stress. Got to fix all those other underlying issues that are causing that. And of course, if you have a lot of digestive inflammation, whether it's in the stomach area or intestines, or lack of stomach acid or enzymes, you may not be able to break down the high quality animal products you're consuming. And that could also create a bottleneck of absorption.
Yeah. So when somebody hears that, they might not realize how big of an impact that could be, right? When somebody hears what you're saying, it's like, oh, these gut infections, digestion, blah, blah, blah. But we've seen it on paper clinically where you have women that are eating paleo, they're doing grass-fed meats, they're doing a great job with diet, and they're still very low. Some of it could be, like you said, high, the excess menstruation. But I'll tell you personally, I've seen a big change in my wife's energy levels after clearing her gut infections out. And we knew that she was having malabsorption. So, and as you age, right? I mean, because when you're 40, 50, 60 and beyond, and you're making less stomach acid due to age, even if you're eating that grass-fed steak in that liver capsule, who knows how much you're getting from that. So to me, I think enzymes would be part of a good iron supporting protocol because people say you are what you eat, but really you are what you digest from what you eat. So I think this would be a good point to just bring up enzymes and acids and make sure that if you have like an H. pylori infection, that could also be something to address because that could be driving the low iron. Now, is that a safe statement to make? Could H. pylori be that big of a smoking gun that it could drive low iron due to the malabsorption?
Yeah, I mean, there's always, there's going to be different degrees of how that infection is causing a stress in your body. If it's there, it's chronic, it's creating a lot of inflammation. Digestive-wise enzymes and acids have dropped significantly. That may impair your ability to absorb. And usually there's going to be some symptoms that tell you the severity. Things like just not having good bowel movements, having a lot of bloating or gassing or burping and flatulence and gut inflammation. Those are pretty good signs that there's stress going on there. Looking at your stools, how formed do they look? Are you regular? Are there a lot of undigested stool pieces, in your stool? Those are all pretty good ideas that you're on a bad track. And so it's good to look at that. And then, of course, if you have chronic iron and you're fixing the menstruation issues, you're eating meat, you're adding in digestive support, that's all great. You probably want to look deeper and get your gut tested and see if there are any other bugs in your gut like SIBO or just general dysbiosis or other parasites or H. pylori or other issues that could be at play. So you got to look at all of it.
Yeah. And you mentioned the inflammation. I mean, so that could be gut exposure. That could also be, I would say, diet is simple. It sounds so simple, but it's still worth mentioning. You still have so many women that are just going in the Starbucks drive-through and getting a pastry or a bagel or a muffin or whatever, and they have their coffee and that's it. That's it for their breakfast. And then they wonder why they're exhausted. So, I mean, nutrient density is just, it's so foundational.
Yeah, nutrient density is really important. And to really have good nutrient density, you have to be eating some level of animal products. You're just not going to get the same level of nutrient density from an amino acid standpoint. You're not going to get the iron, the B12. It's going to be harder to get the fat soluble vitamin A. I mean, you'll convert some from B12. I mean, some from beta carotene, but you won't get enough. And if you have insulin resistance, you won't convert B12. You won't convert beta carotene well. You also won't convert a lot of your ALA based omega-3s like flax and chia. You won't convert that to your longer chain EPA and DHEA fats, which are good for inflammation in your brain. So there's a lot of precursor things that we just assume like, oh, I'm getting iron from spinach. I'm going to convert that non-heme iron to heme-based iron, right? To animal heme iron. It's like, no, oh, I'm getting enough bioflavonoids in my vegetables. That's vitamin A, right? It's like, well, no, that's beta carotene. You may not convert that. Or same thing with, just trying to think here, what other analogies that you can do. So you have the plant-based iron, you have the beta carotene stuff, you have the vitamin, trying to think here, what else? Zinc and a lot of your minerals may be tied up in a lot of anti-nutrients in plants. So you may think you're getting a lot of these vitamins and minerals, but you may be having a lot of them tied up in the anti-nutrients, the lectins, the phytates, the mineral blockers, the trypsin inhibitors. And so you may think you're getting some of these things because it's on the nutrient label, but there may be some absorption because of these mineral blockers and proteolytic enzyme blockers.
That's a good point. And so for vegetarian vegans listening, if you could get them on liver capsules, you'd say get them on some pastured liver would be a great option. If they're opposed to that, even, I mean, what do? I've seen women on paper suffer for years, and I honestly just use the labs as justification to push them harder into something like liver capsules if they just absolutely don't want to do the meats.
Yeah, there's some liver capsules are going to be ideal. That's where I'll put in my Iron Supreme, which is a ferrous bisglycinate. We'll add in some additional amino acids from like either collagen or some kind of a free form amino acid to get the protein up without getting all of the anti-nutrients and the carbs in there as well. Just because a lot of vegan vegetarian proteins, they're just very carb heavy, right? Rice and beans, quinoa, they're just, they're 60, 70% carbohydrate per the protein you get in. So it's hard if you need to keep your carbs down for insulin or inflammation or fat burning means, well, it's hard to do that if you're trying to stick to a vegetarian vegan diet. I mean, you can do it if you're adding maybe some hemp protein or some rice protein in, but then you're heavily reliant on a lot of processed food for most of your protein. That's not great. So we don't want to have things to be so processed where we have to overly rely on it. It probably tells us that your diet needs to be tweaked and adjusted if you're heavily relying on processed food to get your nutrients up.
Yep. Well said. So men, definitely get your iron tested too. I mean, females are probably going to be more symptomatic than men, meaning the fatigue, the hair loss, that kind of thing with the low iron. But men, high iron, you can have symptoms from that. I will tell you, when I've went to donate blood, I've had my hemoglobin very high. They cut you off at 20. If it's above 20, you have to get a prescription to donate blood. And then they call it the therapeutic blood donation. But I was like a 19.6 and I felt like I was getting mentally foggy, mentally cloudy. I certainly had more brain fog. And I would say my energy levels were a little bit less. And I actually asked some of the donation people, hey, what would you think I would experience based on this level of hemoglobin? Because they go, oh man, you're high. And I go, okay, well, what should I feel like? And they actually said exactly how I felt. They thought you would feel cloudy. And then I would remember this feeling of just donating a pint and then boom, it was like this release. It was like literally almost like an energy drink after I got that excess iron out. So I tell you, it's very therapeutic.
Yeah. And again, iron's going to cause oxidative stress. And so if you're a male and you're over accumulating iron, get blood, get some therapeutic functional tests done. So you're actually losing blood via the testing means. And then make sure you're also, taking in a lot of really good high quality antioxidants, through organic vegetables, maybe low sugar fruit, because at least the antioxidants that you're getting in will help at least buffer some of the oxidative stress from the iron, right? And so we at least want to make sure antioxidant levels from fruits and vegetables are dialed in and we're getting good, healthy, antioxidants in there, maybe through curcumin or other high quality nutrients to help buffer some of that, to offset some of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Well, if you want to get tested, Dr. Justin's able to run blood work. I'm able to run blood work. We do it around the world, which is pretty cool. I guess technically blood work we do in the United States. It's a little tricky internationally for blood work. Probably
it's still do it, but it's harder.
Yeah, it is harder. But for the functional testing, which you can do functional blood testing, and that's what we do. Our panels are much more comprehensive than what you're going to get down the street from your doctor. So if you need help, you can reach out, and just please let us know if you have trouble. I mean, a lot of times people are begging their physicians to run a comprehensive thyroid panel, to run the antibodies, to run the ferritin. You shouldn't have to beg someone to get these markers done. This is very simple. We can literally get you a requisition form the same day. You go straight to the lab. You don't have to beg somebody to run it. So if you need help, please reach out to Dr. J, justinhealth.com, or me, Evan Brand, at evanbrand.com. We would love to help you with this and the other related things too, whether it's gut infections we need to look for or sources of inflammation driving this. There's probably some root causes. It's not just magically going to happen like this. There's probably a couple other, it's an entangled spider web, if you will. So we got to kind of tease that apart. And we love doing that. It's a blast. And it's very rewarding when you see a woman who is buying all these hair loss control shampoos and these special products they get suckered into by their hair salon, and they simply just needed to optimize their ferritin levels.
Yeah. And if your iron levels are low, that can impact your thyroid. If your iron levels are low, that can impact your adrenals, because you need high quality, you need to carry oxygen to be able to have aerobic metabolism. You need to carry oxygen to have good thyroid function. If we don't have good thyroid hormones, important for stimulating the hair to grow. And of course, if we're not breaking down our protein and our iron, we're probably not going to be absorbing all the proteins and fats to help build up our hair, to make our hair healthy. And so all those things can play a major role. So guys, give blood, get some testing done. Women, make sure, women, people in general, women especially, make sure you're eating high quality animal products, or at least something, right? Maybe it's an egg yolk, maybe it's some liver capsules. Just try to do something that's going to kind of meet in the middle on it. And then outside of that, get tested as well. If you're a female and you're bleeding heavy, you got to really look at the estrogen dominance, and you got to look at your progesterone. Conventional medicine is going to just throw birth control pills at you, and that's not going to fix the issue. It's actually going to compound and make the problem worse, because estrogen pills can lower B vitamins and B12 and folate and calcium. It can lower other nutrients, and it's actually making your estrogen dominance worse, right? It's giving you more estrogen. It's giving it to you at a consistent level, which is better. You're not having the up and downs, but it's not fixing all of the hormonal imbalances, just covering things up. So you want to get to the root cause, reach out to Evan, evanbrand.com, or myself, Dr. J, at justinhealth.com. We're here to help.
Hey, man, you did a great job.
Hey, you as well, man. Appreciate it.
I think we killed it.
All right. Excellent. All right, guys. And by the way, what are my ranges? Ferritin 30 to 40 and up for women. Men, 60, 80-ish, I think are pretty good for that. Iron saturation 25 and up. And I think it's a pretty good kind of starting point there. Maybe binding proteins in the low 300s, below 300 is a pretty good thing out of the gates.
Yeah, I had a woman with a ferritin level of 6. She could hardly get up a flight of stairs because she was so short of breath. Her hair was falling out in clumps. Her husband was mad at her because she was clogging the shower all the time. Once we got her ferritin back up to the 50s, her hair stopped falling out. She felt so much better. She could run up the stairs without passing out. I mean, it was just incredible. So don't underestimate this. I know if you guys listen to us on a regular basis, even some clients tell us they listen to us while going to sleep. Don't sleep on this issue. This is something you really got to address.
Yeah, it's an important issue for sure. And then for guys that have low iron, vegetarian, make sure you're not doing that. Vegetarian, vegan, and look at the gut. You're probably not absorbing or digesting or breaking it down. So get the gut looked at deeper. All right, Evan, have a phenomenal day, man. Great chatting with you.
Take care now. You too. Bye-bye.
Take care, y'all.